So, yesterday, we kind of got some new information that is a little bit insane. And the information comes from an apparent interview with David Ramsey where he talks about how the Arrowverse isn't going to be a thing anymore, how it's now going to be the SuperVerse followed on from Superman and Lois with shows like Gotham Knights and Justice U, and a bunch of other information. And I just want to say this video is not really going to be structured, so this could be a really long video or it could be a really short video. I do have a lot of thoughts I want to get out, but I think it's better if I just kind of talk about my thoughts and just keep talking and talking until I don't want to talk anymore, because I do have a lot of thoughts about all of this sort of new information. And also, quick disclaimer that none of this is confirmed. Okay? We don't actually have a video of David Ramsey saying this. We don't even have an audio of David Ramsey saying this. This is just an interview that apparently a comic book YouTuber called Comic Chris got with David at the London and Film Comic Con recently, and the video only came out over the past couple days. So again, this isn't even like a literal interview we can look at. This is just somebody saying that they got to interview David Ramsey recently. And this might not even be exactly what David said. This could be this person's interpretation of what David said. So take all of this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying this guy's lying and he's saying that he didn't interview David. I'm sure he talked to David, but I'm just not entirely sure how much a lot of this information is legit, how much of this actually did come from David's mouth. Because one thing is that a lot of this information sounds like things that David would not actually know. Sounds like things that David would not be privy to information-wise. And another thing is that a lot of this sounds like somebody who absolutely hates the Arrowverse and loves Superman and Lois would say. So it seems that if you're on the camp that absolutely hates the Arrowverse, this almost sounds too good to be true, sort of thing. So I'm not saying it's not legit and that this person's lying, but I'm just saying that a lot of it is very, very, very shaky. But basically, in that video, apparently David Ramsey said all of this. He said that there's a new DCTV CW continuity continuing on now that started with Superman and Lois Season 1. It's going to be called the Superverse, and it's going to include Gotham Knights and Justice U. Justice U being the upcoming show that will star Diggle going, training metahumans in a metahuman sort of school situation. Besides that, he said that The Flash is definitely ending with Season 9. He said he's not appearing as Diggle on The Flash in Season 9, and that him giving up the ring was the reason why him giving up the ring in The Flash Season 8 felt like a final scene and a goodbye to Diggle was apparently because it was a goodbye to our version of Diggle. That was a legitimate ending to his arc. He gave up the ring, and that's him done on Flash. That's him done in the Arrowverse, basically. He'll be recurring in Season 3 of Superman and Lois, which we kind of already sort of knew this. That was kind of hinted at heavily already. Justice U is definitely happening, is another thing he said. And there's a lot to talk about, so I'm kind of going to go through each one of these bit by bit. I want to start with the things that I don't think David Ramsey would know. And that is The Flash ending with Season 9, for example. I don't think David Ramsey would know about that. Unless he's much higher up on the food chain than we thought he was, and he kind of is sort of connected to all these corners of DCTV. Now, the fact he is directing episodes of basically every DCTV show in the last 5 years, or I guess DCTV CW show in the last 5 years, kind of does imply that he knows a lot, and he has a lot of connections, and he knows more than the average actor who's only on one of these shows would know. But I still think him knowing that The Flash is ending with Season 9 is kind of crazy, because one, Eric Wallace said very recently that he still has not decided if Season 9 is going to be the end of the show for them. Which now it's completely possible, honestly. It's even likely Eric's not being completely truthful about that. I think he knows in the back of his head whether he's ending The Flash this year. But I don't think that he would have come out and said, I'm not sure if it's ending this year, if he knew 100% that yes, the show was ending this year. So for David Ramsey to come out and be the one to say, yeah, it's ending this year, seems kind of crazy, or ending next year, sorry, seems kind of crazy, and seems like something I don't think he would know. On top of that, a lot of this information seems like things that David shouldn't be saying. Like, even if it is true, David shouldn't be saying. There's much more diplomatic ways to get a lot of this information out than a random interview with a random comic book YouTuber. Like, for David to say all of this to this YouTuber guy, it does seem a little unprofessional. It seems like something that he really should not be saying, that he should have been told already, this is what you can say if you get asked about these things, this is what you can't say. It's like you wouldn't see the MCU doing this. Like, we all joke about how Tom Holland or Mark Ruffalo has spoiled stuff in the past. A lot of that is PR. Like, a lot of that is them jokingly spoiling things in a PR fun way. This isn't a fun way to spoil things. this legitimately feels like David is just saying things that he really should not be saying. And the MCU wouldn't do this. If the MCU wants us to know something, they'll get Tom Holland to spoil it in a fun way, but it'll be a way that you can easily go, oh, that's so funny, I can't believe he said that. Whereas this is just like, I can't believe David said that. That's absolutely ridiculous. The other thing that I'm not entirely sure if David would know yet is if Justice U is happening. I would say that he's kind of been told more than most about how it's progressing, but I don't think he's going to know if Justice U is getting the green light until it gets a pilot order. And that's going to be basically as the same time we find out. Like, when we find out about the pilot order, I think that's probably around the same time David's going to find out if Justice U is moving ahead. Maybe not kind of the same day or anything, but I think within a couple of weeks of when David finds out Justice U is happening is when we'll find out if it's happening. Now, this could mean that we're going to find out Justice U is happening pretty soon, but at the moment, Justice U is still very much up in the air. It's still getting written from what I heard recently. I think a recent article said that they're still kind of writing it, or they're still kind of developing it, but there's no kind of official, we're shooting a pilot or anything like that just yet. So even if Justice U does happen, that show is still probably a year or two out. I would say next fall is hopeful, but probably early 2024 is like the most likely for it. I think that they're kind of going on this path now of having a lot of the DC TV shows be airing in the January, February sort of part, especially on the CW. So yeah, that's kind of it. The fact he'll be recurring in season 3 of Superman Lois, we are already sort of knew. As well as that, the John Henry Irons plotline with Bruno Mannheim, that sort of sets up easy ways for Diggle to be in the show quite a bit. So that's not really a surprise. That just sounds like something that is legitimate. Even if this interview didn't happen, that's something that I think is legit anyway. The fact he's done appearing as Diggle on The Flash, that I could go either way on that. I think that could be legit. I also think it couldn't be. But if I had to choose, like if I had a gun to my head and was like, do you think Diggle's coming back on Flash Season 9? I would say probably not. Because that ending for him in The Flash Season 8 did feel like an ending to the character. It felt like a legitimate goodbye to the character. I think a lot of us were really hopeful that they were going to still go down the path of Green Lantern in the Arrowverse, that this was just kind of the final test to see if Diggle was worthy, and that him giving away all that power was him showcasing that he is in fact worthy. So now he has completed the test or the trials, and now he can become the Green Lantern. That's kind of what I was hoping was the plan for this. Eric Wallace did come out recently and said that he wrapped up Green Lantern on his show because, on his show being The Flash, because he didn't think that anybody would ever get the chance to do that. And I was pissed when I heard that. I was so annoyed because I was like, this was before Superman Lois aired its final, so I was still kind of the mind of, what right do you have to wrap up that storyline if there's still other places for it to be wrapped up? Like Justice U, at the time we still thought Justice U and Superman Lois were Earth Prime shows. I was like, Justice U, Superman Lois Season 3, there's a bunch of places where they could still go with this Green Lantern stuff. Why did you wrap it up? There's no reason to do that. And now I'm kind of like, okay, I'm sorry, Eric. It does seem like you were trying to give at least a satisfying ending to Diggle as a character because you were worried about where all of this was heading. So that's one point on it. So I used to give Eric Wallace a lot of flack, but I think I'm starting to understand him a lot more lately, especially considering how crazy a lot of Superman Lois stuff has been. I have found a new appreciation for The Flash and for the people working on The Flash that I didn't have before. Now let's talk about the new DCTV CW continuity being called the Superverse and not the Arrowverse. So first off, I want to say that there is no definitive explanation or definitive definition for what the Arrowverse is. A lot of people are saying that they know exactly what the Arrowverse is, and this is what the Arrowverse is, this is what the Arrowverse isn't. I don't agree with that. I think everybody has their own idea of what the Arrowverse is, and ultimately, if you can argue your idea, I sort of agree. I can go, okay, that makes sense, that's valid, I understand why you think that. For me, the Arrowverse is anything that ties back to Arrow in 2012. So any show that came after Arrow came out, but still heavily ties back to Arrow, whether it's through cast members or whether it's through kind of the creative teams, I think that it's the Arrowverse. So for example, I personally, Even though Stargirl isn't Earth Prime, and even though like, Superman and Lois isn't Earth Prime, I still personally consider them Arrowverse shows, because with Superman and Lois, the people cast in those shows still directly tie back to what Arrow established in 2012. With Stargirl, we've got John Wesley Shipp's Jay Garrick directly tying back to Flash, which directly ties back to Arrow. That's why I consider them shows that's why I consider Superman, Lois, and Stargirl Arrowverse shows. Like, I would not personally consider Gotham Knights an Arrowverse show. So far based on what we know. And if this Superverse thing is legit, then I'm probably going to have to kind of reconsider that. But if Gotham Knights ended up being its own standalone thing, I would not consider that an Arrowverse show unless, for example, somebody who was cast in Batwoman showed up playing the same version of the character. Like, for example, if we had Luke Fox and the same actor from Batwoman showed up on Gotham Knights played him, even though it's technically not our Luke Fox, I would consider that an Arrowverse show now, because it's directly tying back to something that Batwoman established, which then ties back to what Arrow has established, sort of thing. So that's personally my feeling on this. But this whole Superverse thing is kind of insane for a bunch of reasons, because again, it contradicts a lot of what we've already been told. It's kind of really frustrating that they can't really get their story straight. Now, of course, this is David Ramsey, not Todd Helbing, saying this, but now we have a lot of what David Ramsey's saying contradicting what Todd Helbing was saying. If you don't know who Todd Helbing was, he is the showrunner for Superman and Lois, and he also ran Flash for a couple seasons before he left for Superman and Lois. But the reason why this whole Superverse thing is kind of weird is because a lot of the excuses we're getting for why Superman and Lois decided to break apart was, one, because they didn't like having so much baggage and so much history already established through like Supergirl and stuff like that. Well, one, Crisis on Infinite Earths is why that isn't really a viable excuse. Crisis on Infinite Earths gave you the perfect excuse to do anything you wanted, to recast anyone you wanted, to bring in any character you wanted, and you could just like Todd Helbing could just come out and say, oh, they look different because of Crisis, and we all would have went, okay. Because so many shows have done this before already. I don't know why Superman and Lois has to be different and special in this regard. But the thing is as well, why did they cast people like Lucy Lane and John Diggle if they wanted this to be separate in the first place? It's so much bullshit, in my opinion. The other thing is that they say they don't want to be connected from anything, and they want Superman and Lois to be a standalone show. But if you're creating now a Superverse out of Superman and Lois, then that excuse or that reasoning is kind of mutant as well. So now you've got Gotham Knights and Justice U also connected to Superman and Lois. This also really limits Gotham Knights and Justice U, because you've established in Superman and Lois that Superman has been the only superpowered hero on this world for 20 years. So this really kind of affects what sort of backstory these shows can do. Like, Justice U can't really reference any bigger heroes in the world, because that's going to contradict what Superman and Lois has established. What's even more bizarre about all this is Gotham Knights has established in its trailer that Batman has been murdered, and that really the only heroes in Gotham at the moment, in their version of Gotham, are like the children of villains and Batman's son and stuff. So that means that in this new Superverse, we're 2 seasons in, Batman's already dead. Even the Arrowverse wasn't stupid enough to do that. The Arrowverse at least gave the out of Batman's been missing. He's not dead, but he's been missing. And then we had characters go looking for him or whatever. We might have never seen him, but we kind of knew that Batman was alive. You know, he was missing. He wasn't dead. Gotham Knights, however, is saying that no, Batman is dead. So that's kind of ridiculous to be 2 seasons into this. You have a Superman who's been established for 20 years, and Batman is already dead. So yeah, it's so weird. I think also a lot of people say that this is the CW's way of kind of cleaning up everything now. That they want everything to be one definitive universe, hence the definitive universe being the Superverse. But where does this leave Stargirl? Because Stargirl is absolutely not in the Superverse. Stargirl is Earth 2, confirmed. We don't know which Earth Superman Lois is on yet, but Stargirl has established so many superpowered characters in its world history. And I don't think it's a case of like the Justice Society of America have been kind of good at hiding themselves or whatever. I think the like we've seen news articles and news clippings of the JSA. Like, there's so many bits in Stargirl where we get flashbacks to something, and we have newspapers, or we have things where it's public knowledge that the JSA or heroes from the JSA are a well-known thing. So Stargirl, if you bring Stargirl in Superverse, that just retcons what Sam Lane said in Superman and Lois about there being no other superpowered heroes. So yeah, it's a complete mess. But again, none of this is confirmed. All of this really needs to be taken with a grain of salt, because so much of it could be wrong, could not have happened at all. It could just be somebody heard somebody else saying this. Like, until we hear David Ramsey come out and say, yes, this interview took place, or until we hear, like, Todd Helbing come out and start confirming some of the stuff that we heard through this interview, I'm probably going to err on the side that this is not legit. But everybody's been talking about it, so I felt like I have to give my thoughts on it. But how would you feel about a new Superverse that includes Gotham Knights, Justice U, and Superman and Lois? Would you prefer that to the 30-something seasons of the Arrowverse? What are your thoughts? What would you like to see in the Superverse? I might do a video on that. Now, I might wait a while to see if anything else comes out about the Superverse. But if it does, I might do a video kind of explaining what we know about kind of the history of the Superverse so far and what I would like to see in the future of it, I guess. But how would you feel about, the Superverse taking over from the Arrowverse? And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all that. We're hoping to hit 1K this year, which would be amazing. So if you could subscribe, that would be awesome. And I hope you have a great day.